I call Jenny Salisa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak on this omnibus education legislation bill. Mr. Speaker, this bill is proposed apparently because it will improve, as we heard from the previous speaker, the administration and the governance arrangements for educational entities as well as funding organisations. I note, Mr. Speaker, that this is the first omnibus bill of its kind for education in over a quarter of a century. It would amend 8 different pieces of legislation to ensure that they align with the government's policy objectives, and according to the general policy statement, it will make operational and administrative changes to early childhood, to compulsory schooling, as well as to the tertiary education sector. The proposed changes, Mr. Speaker, spans the breadth of our education system, from allowing tertiary institutions to sponsor charter schools, to creating the role of a super principal, to allowing the State Services Commissioner to approve generic or specific terms and conditions of employment, to adjusting school opening hours, to modernising the Pacific Islands Polynesian Education Foundation Act of 1972, amongst many other things, Mr. Speaker. These are very wide-ranging changes to the education system, and these are a myriad of issues, and the changes that this bill proposes, Mr. Speaker, is way too wide, and I only have time to touch on one, possibly two of those matters. Firstly, I turn to the measures of allowing principals to run multiple schools. Now, Labor is certainly very open to discussions about how best to encourage collaboration between schools, as well as to reduce the negative impacts of the competitive model on schooling. But taking a successful principal and first diluting their positive impact on their own school, and then secondly, stretching them thinly across other schools and hoping for beneficial effects on par with the current successes that they are actually enjoying in their school, is, I believe, taking a huge gamble with our children's future. And are the successful principals in our community keen to do this? In my electorate of Manukau East, Mr. Speaker, there is an excellent performing school that some of you may have heard of, Macaulay Girls High School, an integrated Catholic school, and I'm very proud of the achievements of girls and students at Macaulay. The principal of the school is someone that I really admire. She is hardworking, she is passionate, she's very intelligent, and she is one of the best principals that I know. She is aspirational for her students. She helps each and every one of her 800 students, she and her teachers, they help their girls to believe that they can achieve, that the sky is the limit. She helps them believe that they can succeed in life, regardless of their home or their socioeconomic status, or indeed even their race. The principal has informed me that it has taken her several years of dedicated effort with the support of Good Governance Board, as well as the support of her teachers, support of her parents and her students to get the results that they enjoy now at Macaulay. Even the Education Review Office, Mr. Speaker, ERO, they have decided that Macaulay does not need to be reviewed in the next 3 years. They won't be reviewed again by ERO for another 5 years. Macaulay outperforms other schools like them in the country. They even outperform other schools that are decile 9 and 10, and they are made up mainly of Pacific. Maybe if you listen, Mr. Seymour, you might learn a thing or two. They even outperform female Pacific students. And Mr. Speaker, this is a community where the median income ranges from $19,700 for students from Mangere or Tahuhu, and it ranges up to $21,000 for students from Papatoetoe or Tara local board area. Last year, Mr. Speaker, the Macaulay pass rate for UE was 74%. The national average was 69%, and many other schools like Macaulay, because it is a decile 1B school, sit around 40%. For NCEA level 1 at Macaulay, it was 95%. National was 81%. For level 2, it was 91%. And for level 3 at Macaulay, it was 91% compared to the national average of 78%. These academic results are astonishing. Macaulay results are transformational for the students, they're transformational for their families and for our local communities. Now, you would think, this is where it relates to this bill, you would think that the principal of this school would be the very sort of principal that should be given to manage a super school as pursuant to this school. But she does not want a bar of this. She is strongly dedicated to making a difference for her students, for the school, for the students, for the girls in her school. She does not want to put any of that at risk. Similarly, she says that she cannot imagine another principal coming in from the outside, not knowing what things are like for her teachers, for her students, and deciding how things should be done differently in her school. I have read the bill. According to this principle, the success that is elsewhere, perhaps based on theory and perhaps success that others have met in other schools, does not necessarily mean that it would be successful for her school. Our children, our students must be at the centre, Mr. Speaker. The changes we propose in this House must be about what works for our children, and putting principals in charge of multiple schools is gambling with our children's education and their future. Further, Mr. Speaker, looking at the details a bit more, having a principal reporting to multiple boards of trustees is fraught with risk. This could create significant accountability issues which would need to be carefully worked through. I would like to turn now to the provisions relating to charter schools. This education legislation bill allows for the expansion of charter schools model to many other schools. The charter schools that I'm most familiar with, Mr. Speaker, are the charter schools model in the United States, particularly charter schools in the state of Michigan, where my husband and I lived for 10 years. The state of Michigan introduced an unlimited number of charter schools. It was brought in from other states because it was touted as the silver bullet, as the solution, especially for educational failure rates of African American students, Latino and other ethnic minority students. There are over 10 million people that live in the state of Michigan. In the city of Detroit, charter schools were opened left, right and centre. Educational success for these students were supposed to improve. Detroit was supposed to save millions. Instead, educational success rate remained either static or, as in most of the schools, it went downhill, and worse, the city of Detroit became bankrupt. Charter schools is a very expensive experiment here in New Zealand. The few charter schools that we have here right now have been, and they continue to be, plagued with problems. Mr. Speaker, only a few streets away from the school that I spoke about earlier on, Macaulay, we have a charter school that has been opened, a Pacific charter school to be exact, and they are supposed to apparently deal with the issues of Pacific students. They are supposed to fix the issues for our community. Just disgraceful when you already have a school that is over 90% Pacific female students that are already doing very well. They are achieving way better than many other schools across the country here in New Zealand. We do not support this bill, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.